Happy Monday. Let's find a comfy seat. Something where we can really settle in, be grounded, be anchored. And something where we can find that verticality of the spine. Thing that we worked on in yesterday's class, if you happen to be there. Nice vertical alignment, nice, easy, fluid breath. And then let's just settle in. Think about those little physical adjustments that you can make so that there's better spinal integration and more ease in the seat. And then think about bringing that physical ease into the breath so that there is ease within the breath as well. And we'll give ourselves 60 seconds just to center in here, let the day drift away. And it feels appropriate for you. If you have the eyes closed, you can let them blink open. Let's take a little mobility to the head. I want you to think about dropping the left ear towards the left shoulder and staying with this midline integrity. And then we'll come back to neutral and we'll do the same thing to the second side. So staying with anchored hip girdle, anchored shoulder girdle, but getting that head drop. Head tilt may be a better way to describe this. Let's come back to neutral. And we'll go one more time over to the left. This time, as you settle the head in, think about retracting that right shoulder ever so slightly. Let's see if we can bring a little more lateral activity or activity to the lateral musculature on the neck. And then we'll come back to neutral and over to the second side. Now, once you get the head tilt, just that little bit of shoulder retraction, see if you can bring in just a little more lateral activity. And then we'll come back to neutral. And let's tuck the chin down to the sternum. Broaden out across the collarbone. Think about experiencing the breath in your belly here. And then let's lift our head back to neutral and we'll transition to hands and knees tabletop. So from tabletop, we think about the cervical spine neutrality. So just like we had in the seat, and we're gonna lift the chin so that we can gaze forward. I like this, it's a little bit softer on the cervical spine than when we're seated and gazing straight up. And then we'll come back to neutral and start to sway the tailbone a little bit. So a little lateral sway with the hips. And then we're going to add in some cervical spine rotation. So as you push your hips to the right, gaze back towards your left shoulder or glute. And then sway the hips over to the left and gaze towards that right shoulder or glute. And then the hips are back to the right and we gaze to the left. And then hips to the left, gaze to the right. And we'll come back to neutral. Push the hands down and activate the shoulder girdle, and then tuck the chin, then round the middle of the back like you're trying to suck the belly button up. And continue to press down into the hands. So belly button sucks up, hands press down, really accentuate that flexion in the spine. And then relax back to neutral and broaden and soften across the collarbones. And then we'll curl our toes and roll back into down dog. And as you get that weight transfer back into the hips, see if you can keep the softness and the width in the collarbones. Like there's the capacity to expand back from this kind of midline medial softness. And think about refinding the softness or the ease within your breath that we had when we were seated. And then let's walk our way forward and into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Relax. Yes, beautiful, Lisa. Relax so that the whole body softens. Drift our awareness to our sacrum and let's roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Coming into mountain, bringing the hands together at heart center, thinking about that big, solid stability here. And we'll slide our left foot straight back into lunge. Land and anchor and breathe and blossom the arms up into crescent. And then think about picking your toes up in crescent. So the front toes, right toes, just elevate up or think about elevating up. And then we'll replant those toes. And as we do so, find that extra depth. And then we'll drop the hands and return to the front of the mat. Good, solid landing. Right foot slides straight back. Blossom the arms up. Think about that verticality and then the toes lift. And then the toes plant and we find that extra depth. Drop the hands. Step to the front of the mat. Sweep the arms up and overhead. Exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Think and settle. Plant your hands. We'll walk back into down dog. Shift forward to plank. And we'll lower ourselves down to our belly. Flip the tops of the feet. Flex the quads. Squeeze the elbows in. With a exhale, so really using the exhale, let's take our forehead maybe 1/4 of an inch off the mat. And then the exhale goes away and the stability goes away unless we encapsulate that. So think about the core engaging so that the lumbar is protected. And then let's slide our hands underneath our forehead for a little crocodile. And we'll just breathe here. Really easy, really fluid breaths. We'll give ourselves 40 more seconds just to relax into the space we've created thus far. And then when it feels appropriate, let's slide our hands underneath our shoulders. We'll press ourselves up to hands and knees, tabletop. And from tabletop, slide the left foot straight back and behind you, left toe mound anchors into the mat. And find that place where the hands and the feet kind of have an equal amount of energy between them. And then extend your right arm straight towards the front of the room. And see if you can feel the core activate. And then release your right arm and left knee back to tabletop. Right leg slides straight back. Once again, that toe mound anchors, and then we want to find the place where we really feel a balanced amount of energy between the foot and the hands. And then that left arm can reach forward. Try to catch that core musculature. And then left hand and right knee come to tabletop, curl your toes, and roll back into down dog. Let's slide our right foot forward into lunge. And then ground your left heel. Let your left hand roll you up into warrior two. And we find some nice space in warrior two. Slide the right hamstring straight back. So we have triangle legs, and then just bring the palms together overhead. Index fingers can point up if that feels best. Fingers can interlace to make that happen. And we're really just trying to drive those arms straight up. And with the arms coming up, try to activate this medial line of the hamstring on the right leg. So it's arm activation to make that possible. We really want to lift the torso. At the same time, we'll need to energize the toe mound on the front foot or right foot. And then rebend that front knee. And let's take the fingers and point them towards the front of the room for a little modified side angle. And then we'll come back into two. A lot of space in that torso now. Left heel spins up, we'll find crescent. Float the hands down to the mat, and we'll step the right foot back and into down dog. Capture your space. And then our left foot can step forward. Right heel grounds, right hand takes us to two. Once again, we kind of find the space within warrior two first. And then we'll slide back into that left hamstring. Hands come together overhead. And we'll energize those hands, the arms really, up so that we can lift the torso. And as we get that torso lift, press down into that left toe mound. Try to feel that front hamstring activate. And then we'll bend the front knee and tilt forward for a little modified side angle. Right hand draws us up into two. A lot of space now. Right heel spins up into crescent. Hands drop. Left foot steps back and into down dog. Come down to hands and knees, tabletop. Flip the tops of the feet and glide your way back into child's pose. First child's pose of class. Think about how the lumbar sits, how the mid-back sits, how that transition between the lumbar and the thoracic land here. So there's this very picturesque village. And the village itself is full of really, really good people. Salt of the earth, as they say. There's nothing really flashy about this village. It's very utilitarian. But everything is pretty much consistently cohesive. We'll give ourselves just 15 more seconds here. And then we'll pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, we're going to retract the left leg by pulling back in this anterior hip crease so that we can lift the left knee. So not out and wide, just kind of up. And there's a lot of core activation to make that possible. Then the right arm's going to reach forward. And then we're going to extend that left leg behind us. Now put the right hand down and lift the left leg as high as is possible. You can push into that right hand and anchor into that, especially if you're not on some slippery carpet. And think about keeping that left arm relatively straight but strong, even if you have an elbow bend. And then we'll come right back into hands and knees. Tabletop. Set and soften across the shoulder girdle in particular. And then we're going to do the same thing to the right side. So anterior hip crease hugs the knee up. It's just a lift. Core activates. Left arm extends forward. And then the right leg extends back. Left hand comes down and that right leg reaches up as high as is comfortable possible. And then back to tabletop. All right, so lot of pec minor activation there. I want you to think about pec minor as we plant the hands, curl the toes, and roll back into down dog. So pec minor musculature, the upper pec tissue, right? It can really impact your ability to get into down dog. And it is a stabilizing piece of musculature for down dog, for the shape of down dog. Drive into that finger mound and try to get the pec major, that lower pec musculature, to help activate and stabilize this shape. Squeeze the scapula together to recruit more of that pec musculature. And as you do that, push the hips even deeper into the shape. And then we'll walk our way forward and into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Drift the awareness to the sacrum and we'll roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Coming into our top space, bring your hands together. At heart center. Interlace the fingers and then push the palms away from you only so far as the shoulders are comfortable. So if you're out here and it doesn't feel good for the shoulders, bend the elbows. You can be all the way back kind of here. And if that feels like it's too much, space the hands out. But palms are away from us here. And then we're gonna sink back into chair. And as you do that, there can be a tendency for our knees to kind of buckle in when we have the elbows out this wide. Think about keeping those knees, be a more appropriate position, at shoulder width. And drive that neutrality in the spine. And then as we rise back up, let the arms reach up and overhead. So elbows can be bent or extended here. And then release your hands to a 90-degree elbow bend. 4 fingers forward, thumbs up. So maybe a robot shape. Stay with that real strong activation. Biceps are kind of activated here. And we'll slide the right foot straight back into lunge. Okay, so push back into that right heel. Think about strong 90-degree bend to the elbows. Maybe even retract back if you're looking at me. And then keeping that 90-degree bend to the elbows, we're gonna lift those elbows up as high as we can. So maybe they get up towards that ear level. Maybe they start to creep towards behind you, but maybe this is the shoulder space, right? It's wherever the shoulders can allow us here. And then we'll relax back to 90-degree neutral, and then sweep the arms up. And just feel that posterior shelf, the tissue around the scapula as you extend up. And then hands drop, and we'll step to the front of the mat. Arms release back to that 90-degree bend, robot activation. Lay the hands out wide, that helps to activate the biceps. I probably should have said that on round 1. And then we'll slide the left foot straight back. And so we drive into that left heel, we capture that, and then we start to lift up. And we're lifting only so far as the shoulders allow without losing the integrity of the shape. And then relax and sweep the arms up with hopefully some nice freedom around the shoulder girdle. And then hands drop, and we'll return to the front of the mat. Okay, let's take the weight and transfer it to the right foot. Lift your left knee, and then step your left foot back into Warrior 2. So one smooth-ish transition. And then drop your hands behind you, palms away from you, thumbs and index fingers coming together. And push the elbows out like you're trying to press the elbows towards the front and back of your mat. And then think about lifting the thumbs as high as is possible without changing the shape. So the moment that you start to cave forward or round back, we've gone too far. And then with the elbows pushing forward, squeeze the shoulders back. Think about this whole pec minor musculature just getting captured and expanded. And then we'll blossom into 2 with maybe some shoulder fatigue. Left heel spins up, we're into crescent. And we'll step to the front of the mat. Weight comes to the left foot. Right foot lifts and right foot slides back. One smooth transition to 2. And then the hands drop behind us, palms away, thumbs and index fingers together, thumbs pointing up. We'll lift those hands as high as possible while pushing those elbows towards the front and back of the mat. And then we take that shoulder space shoulders rolling back so pecs can get involved here. And then release to 2. Whew. Right heel spins up crescent. And we will step to the front of the mat. Nice work. Sweep the arms up and overhead. Exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands, we'll walk our way back into down dog. Let's come to hands and knees tabletop, flip the tops of the feet and sink back into child's pose. Re-landing, re-energizing, or re-checking in, engaging with the lumbar and the thoracic lumbar union. Finding our way to a nice fluid, easy breath. So in this village lived this very highly respected woodworker. She was the person that the entire village relied on when they needed craftsmanship that would last for years. So when they were building new buildings, she was always the one that would plane the beams and ensure that everything was as high a quality as was possible. We'll give ourselves just 15 more seconds here. And then when it feels appropriate, as it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. Hands and knees tabletop. Splay the fingers out. Take the left foot, send it straight back, and then ground the left heel. And at the same time, think about the pinky toe edge of the left foot also grounding. May be necessary to reposition that right hand. Left arm's gonna reach up, so we have a little grounded side angle-like energy. You may feel that medial edge opening up. And then take that left arm straight forward, thumb down, 4 fingers pointed straight forward. Reach and extend like you are trying to get as much lateral length as may have ever happened. And then take that same length and take the arm straight up. Push down into that right hand like you're trying to lift up into that left hand. And then release the left hand down, re-find tabletop, sink back to child's pose, reset, energize, squeeze the core, and then pull yourself forward to hands and knees tabletop. Right foot extends straight back, right heel grounds, pinky toe edge lands and is anchored there. Really think about that pinky toe edge anchoring. Right arm reaches up for our side angle energy and then extends straight forward, thumb down, 4 fingers pointing towards the front of your room or mat. Really pushing into that pinky toe edge of the right foot as you reach those right fingers forward. As much lateral line as is possible. And then right hand comes up. Push down in that left hand like you're trying to lift up into that right hand. And then right hand comes down and we reestablish tabletop. Curl your toes, lift your seat, and roll back into down dog. Sway the hips a little here. And let's walk our way forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Drift your awareness to your sacrum and roll yourself up vertebrae by vertebrae. Finding mountain, bringing the hands together at heart center. Letting the eyes soften or close. Thinking about finding the stability of the shape. And then if the eyes are closed, we'll blink open, let the left foot slide back into lunge, ground the left heel. Blossom into 2. Take your right forearm to your right thigh, reach the left arm straight forward, palm down this time, and then start to retract back into the right hamstring. Keeping that lateral line as your primary thought, but pulling energy into the right hamstring. And then right knee rebends. We come back into 2. Slide back into your right hamstring. And now the right hand's going to head down into a more traditional triangle alignment. Nice, long, lateral edge. And then bend your front knee. Draw yourself back into 2. Once again, left heel spins up, crescent. Drop the hands to heart center. We'll return to the front of the mat. And then let's send our right foot straight back and behind us. Right heel grounds. Finding 2. Left forearm to left thigh. Right hand reaches forward, palm down. Think about this lateral edge as the expansion point. And then transition as you start to slide back into your left hamstring. That does not mean that the left leg gets straight, just that we're activating the hamstring. Does not necessarily mean that the left leg gets straight. And then we rebend that front knee and draw ourselves into 2. Slide back into your left hamstring. And we slide down into our triangle alignment. Traditional triangle alignment. Lateral edge length, cervical spine length. Rebend that front knee, draw ourselves into 2 once again. Right heel spins up, crescent. Hands come together at heart center as we step to the front of the mat. Press those fingerprints together, press the heels of the hands together, and sink back towards chair. Push down into the toe prints. Fully express your chair. Rise back up and exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant the hands. We'll walk back into down dog. Then shift forward to plank. Activate your plank. Think about the stability there. Lift the seat back into down dog. Try to get all the depth possible in down dog. It can be hard coming out of plank. One more time to plank. And this time we'll lower ourselves to our belly. Flip the tops of the feet, flex the quads. Squeeze the elbows in towards the rib cage and then lighten the connection your hands are making with the mat. So while we're still connected to the mat with our fingerprints, our finger mounds, and the heel of our hand, it is as light and delicate as you can possibly make it. Then we're going to lift the forehead 1/4 of an inch. Hands stay with that lightness, that delicateness. Elbows stay squeezed in, breath stays possible. And then when it feels appropriate, relax, slide your hands underneath your forehead for a little crocodile. And breathe here. Every day this woodworker would do what she's asked. People would come to her with specific needs and she would create them. And she would create them immaculately. She's working in her shop one day and this old wanderer comes into the village. And he sits down in front of her shop and he watches her work all day. And she doesn't really notice him for quite some time, but then she sees that there's a person sitting out in front. And when she's cleaning up for the day, he comes over to her and he says, "You want a lot more than this." And it kind of breaks her in a way. She starts crying. And she doesn't even know why she's crying at first. And then it hits her. It's true. She wants more than this. He reaches into his pocket and he hands this silver kind of clamshell mirror to her. He says, when you're ready, gaze into this. And she doesn't really respond. She feels pretty awkward. And by the time she looks back up, this old wanderer has disappeared. Last 10 seconds here. When it feels appropriate, let's press ourselves up to hands and knees, tabletop. Curl our toes, lift our seat, and find our way back into down dog. And as you get back into down dog, energize into those hands, drive that energy back into the hips, and then sway the hips a little side to side. And then as the hips sway over towards the right, gaze underneath your left armpit. And try to feel that big musculature on the right side of the body near that right shoulder blade. And then as the hips come over to the left, gaze underneath your right armpit. Hips back to the right, gaze underneath the left. Hips back to the left, gaze underneath the right. Hips back to neutral. And we'll walk ourselves forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. If your awareness to your sacrum, we'll roll or sweep ourselves into mountain. Bring our hands together behind us, interlacing the fingers, thumbs resting against the sacrum. Rolling the shoulders up and back, and then pressing the arms down as much as feels comfortable. With that energy of the thumbs pressing down, knuckles pressing down, let's start to take ourselves into a forward fold. And then we'll start to lift the hands as much as feels accessible for our shoulders this evening. And then relax the hands down. Keep the head pointed towards the floor and sweep the arms towards the front of the room. And then relax the arms down. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Drift your awareness to your sacrum. We'll roll or sweep ourselves back into mountain. Hands coming together at heart center. Interlace the fingers. Push the palms away from you. Again, the elbows can be bent here, just what feels accessible for us. And then we're going to reach overhead. Again, elbows can be bent or the arms can be extended, whatever is possible. And then once you get the arms as overhead as they can comfortably sit, think about rolling the lats backward. So it's like scapula back, but not scapula together. So it's not the medial line collapsing. It's those lateral edges of the scapula pushing back towards the back of the room. Really trying to capture this lat musculature. And then release that into forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands, we'll walk our way back into down dog. Come down to hands and knees, tabletop. Flip the tops of the feet and sink back into child's pose. And just breathe. give ourselves 15 seconds here just to think about the shoulders settling. And then when it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, we'll extend our legs straight out in front of us. Nice little opportunity to check in on staff. Like again, yesterday's class, remember that you can bend the knees as much as feels comfortable. And then take ourselves into a forward fold. Just a fold where we can relax and be at ease. And we'll give ourselves just 30 more seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, we'll walk ourselves back into seat and then lower ourselves straight onto our spine. To deeply appreciate what we've done tonight, we've done some great work on that shoulder girdle. Knees can be bent, legs can be extended, bottoms of the feet can be together. Anything that allows you to appreciate what you've done thus far in class. Think about once again connecting to the fluidity, the ease of your breath. Feel that support underneath you. We'll give ourselves about 30 more seconds, just of 30 more seconds of appreciation. Not nearly enough, but what we'll grant ourselves this evening. And when it feels appropriate for you, let's take our feet out to the width of the mat so we get a little wider base. And with an exhale, allow both knees to fall over towards the left. And then we'll inhale to neutral. And we'll exhale over to the right. Inhale to neutral. And exhale to the left. Inhale to neutral. And exhale to the right. Inhale to neutral. And we'll exhale over to the left for a little static hold. And so this woodworker, she takes this mirror home and she kind of tosses it on a little bedside table that she's built. She doesn't really think about it. She goes to work the next day, and it's a little bit harder than it normally is. People are coming in with their orders, and she's doing what she's asked. But a little bit of that spark that she was able to create for herself is gone. And the same with the next day. And the same with the next day. And she goes home after that third day of work being really rough, way harder than it normally is, right? It's like work has its ups and its downs, but just 3 really hard days in a row. Comes in, she's exhausted, she gets into her bedroom, and she sees just out of the corner of her eye that little silver clamshell mirror that she hasn't opened, she hasn't looked into. She thinks about what the old wanderer said when he gave it to her. And he told her, look into this mirror when you're ready. And so she takes a deep breath and she flips it open. And she looks into the mirror. And she sees exactly what she expected she'd see, her face. When you're right, when you're ready, knees come back to neutral. And then we'll let the knees fall over to that second side, the right side. And she closes the mirror and she sets it back on the bedside and she says, silly old man. She gets into bed and she goes to sleep. And that night she has these very vivid dreams. And they're dreams about her village. And the things she's crafted for her village that made her village more vibrant for the people that live there. She dreams about building this giant playground for the children. And these railings and ramps for the elderly folks. And this huge covered pavilion in the middle of town, so that the entire community can gather no matter what season it is. Last 30 seconds here on this second side. And when it feels appropriate, we'll bring our knees back to neutral and just add a little dynamic exploration, just a little bit of reintegration movement. And then eventually there'll come a time when the knees, the body come to a still point. You can ask yourself if there's anything that you might want, need, or benefit from prior to Shavasana. And if there is, you can offer that to yourself now. If you have everything that you need, if you're ready for some stillness, and let's just drift in to a physical shape where we can be still. So over the course of the next several months, she goes to work in her shop, building the things she dreamed about. And they become huge pieces of joy for the people of her community, of her village. And that joy spreads. People become happier, people become nicer, people become more productive. The village ends up becoming a huge tourist place. People come and have functions under the huge pavilion she built. And all the while, their kids can go play on this massive playground. And it becomes a place that is safe for everyone. She's built these wonderful railings and ramps so that even people with mobility issues can get around. We'll start to bring some movement to our fingers and our toes. Wrists, ankles, elbows, shoulders, neck, head. Knees, hips, entirety of the spine, jaw, eyes, tongue. Eventually, the entirety of the body moves, and we'll utilize that movement to find a seat. Settling in so that the spine can be at ease, vertical, and the breath can be fluid and at ease as well. And with your next inhale, we'll bring our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remind yourself it's not just your talents, your abilities that will be the limiting factor, but your willingness to dream and imagine what you can create that will help impact the world. Thank you so much for being a part of this evening's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Monday, guys. Appreciate the heck out of you being here. Love the heck out of you. I'll be back on Sunday to recharge, and we'll do this again next Monday. Have a beautiful, beautiful week. Love the heck out of you. Mwah!